welcome to Black Crow Gaming's Meta Monday. You're back with us, myself, Arron. I've got Josh with us tonight as our special guest, and he's back, the one, the only, Elder Toby. There he is. Ignore the guy in the corner. We don't really care about that. We care about the little guy in the little corner. Elder God Himself, the one, the only, the Bible salesman of the 40k universe. The man, he's back. So, we've got loads to cover tonight. Lots has happened. There was quite a few tournaments over the weekend. Nothing massive, as you'll see if you look at the Meta Monday article. But what was really cool about this weekend is that we had almost 20 crows playing at different events over the weekend. Maybe even more. I could be wrong. Who knows? But there was a lot of good things that happened over that weekend. A lot of crows took away some excellent trophies, which we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, we've got to kind of talk about some of the things that are really important. And one of the things that I like to go on for is our community post of the week. And I figured we'd get into that first. So I think this is only more appropriate that our guest, Josh, introduces this chap, as he is a Devon Crow. So if you'd like to give us a little bit of an introduction as to who this is and why and what the army is, Josh, give it away.
So, yeah, I went down to Crossroads this weekend down in Iron Bridge. And yeah, they've got an event called War at the Western Ward Free, which is basically just a weekend of gaming in a pub. So can't really go too wrong with that. I decided to take Chaos Knights in the end. So I ended up taking a complete War Dog span. I had a Stalker with no enhancements. I had 5 Brigands with Havoc launchers. And then I had 2 Huntsmen with Melchers, 3 Carnivores with Havoc launchers, 3 units of 3 Nurglings, a unit of Flesh Hounds, a Changeling, and a Blue Scribes. So that was my list.
Well, I'm happy to say that you told us our list, but what I want you to introduce, which is really funny, is the community-painted army. Because you weren't listening, you absolute asshat. No, we've been over 2 minutes in, so I can literally say it. You absolute asshat. Right. The community army first this week. And I'm going to have
community army, yes. Right, we have Matt Jarvis.
Yay!
He is, he's been a member of, there it is, there we go. It would help if I was listening, wouldn't it?
It would really help. It's very pretty, folks. I know if you watched the short, I did mention that we're going to give Eldari some love this week because we do bash on them a bit because, you know.
Boo!
I mean, that was really obnoxious. Anyway, this is why the skit later is appropriate. Excuse me. But yeah, look at that beautiful Eldari list. And we're going to go into his 2 avatars. There they are. The double avatar list.
Yeah, so Matt Jarvis, he's... Carry on.
No. You go for it. You know, Matt. He is a Devon Crow.
I was just going to say, yeah. So this is Matt. He is indeed, and a very good painter at it as well. He does do commission work through his Instagram, Vision Wargaming. But yeah, he's been a member of the Crows now for a little while, and unfortunately, he didn't win Best Painted this weekend, which I think he was almost robbed of. But it's a beautiful army. And yeah, you can see for yourselves. I mean, he just spends hours on them. So it's, yeah, really pretty. And you can't just say he's a meta chasing Eldar player when you've got something that pretty on the table.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, he's really put the time and the effort and the love into that. I just want to double check because the guys on YouTube are saying I'm a bit quiet. Is this better? YouTube World, has my audio improved? Is Arron? Are you able to now hear me? Give me a yes or a no in the live chat. Keep bashing. Sam, that doesn't help. Better, but echoing. That is annoying. Typical.
Let's try a different way of doing this. You know what? It wouldn't be a Meta Monday without there being some form of technical issue, would it?
I feel like it's just becoming a part of the show now. It's has to happen.
It does. It literally does have to happen. Let's try it out. Let's see. How's that going? bit better, but still not quite. You know what? I'm gonna rock on and
speak up, Arron. just be loud.
I'm just gonna yell for the next hour. So we're gonna move on from Matt's Elder. As you can see, it's beautiful, and I might put it up at the end. And I'm gonna go into my next favourite community bit, and this is something I wanted to add to it. As you know, everybody knows I like a bit of a laugh, and this week, Toby, you fucking eating your dinner. You know what? You have one job: is to get prepared for the stream, and you're sat there eating chicken nuggets like a toddler. Anyway.
Yeah, they're delicious.
We're professional, folks. I promise. Anyway, we're gonna get back to the skit. So the skit is essentially, what's he saying? What's going on? Tag this. What is the tagline? So I'm going to get started. And now I know Sam. He's one of our latest crows, and he is a big World Eaters fan. So I'm only assuming that he has truly seen the size of Angron's penis, and he is telling his opponent, it is actually really this big. What do we reckon? Josh, your turn. What do you think?
Everyone's this big.
Ooh.
So I play 40k.
Quiet again. It was like you had two audios and you turned off the correct volume one. Well, that's a good start. Did they even hear my joke? This is going.
How's this going? I reckon this one works. Josh, can you try that again? Because you glitched out a bit there. Staying classic.
Yeah.
Toby, your turn. What is the skit?
Oh, see, mine was also a penis-related joke, which unfortunately I think either great or dirty minds work alike. But honestly, I think mine was, no, really, Angron's girth is just like that.
This really is what 6 inches looks like. Anyway, we're going to move on. Thank you for skit, Sam. You have given us one of the best photos of the EAGT weekend, and we're gonna get talking about a topic that I think is really important that we talk about, and I think it's something that could have happened this weekend if morally we had some more morals wrong with us. But it's called score tanking. Now, Toby, I know you've just taken a mouthful of what I can only assume is chicken. Can you please explain to the viewers at home why are we talking about score tanking?
Yeah, so the reason we're talking about score tanking is because I think it was about 13 Black Crows over at the EAGT this weekend. So obviously we were going to pair into each other, and at that point, we were playing on points as our differential, and particularly when you get to those final rounds, that's when your points really start mattering. And the difference between 7th and 3rd place, I believe, was about 13, 14 points. So it was very, very close in that regard. Now, in the final round, I was up against another crow. If they had just given me 100 points, sorry, I had a mosquito fly at me there, then I would have come, I think I might have managed to take 3rd.
You would have stolen 3rd by a point.
Yeah, so I would have stolen 3rd by a point. But I didn't win by 100, and I didn't deserve to win by 100. So it's a case of, and like I absolutely, in that game, punted away by making a huge error, quite a few points, because I completely overwatched with the wrong thing, and that cost me one of my 260 point units. So That could have been something we did, though. And as Arron said, I personally think that's a bit immoral. I can understand why people would do it. But ultimately, if you are doing it, you are maybe taking toy soldiers too seriously. And as you guys know, we don't take our toy soldiers too seriously just from the sheer amount of penis jokes we make at this podcast.
I mean, it's ride or die, right? Anyway.
Wait, ride or die what, Arron? Ride or die what?
Look, Toby, I've always known what you are, really. And do you want to know what you are? You're a bit of a tanker, mate. That's right. This is Tanking Toby. Now, we all love a Toby.
I think I prefer Tanking Toby over Toby.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I prefer at this point. It's like, am I a Bible salesman on
You get a comparison.
Yeah, you know what? Yes, I can. Give me 1 second to make this a thing.
Toby's tank gun was this big.
But to come back to your point on tanking, I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, I would like to think that in the hobby that hasn't happened, but I've never heard of it happening, and it's an interesting topic to bring up. It's not something we've ever done as a team, and it's not something we ever will do. And I've never heard of it happening, but I'm sure it potentially has. It's one of those grey areas.
I mean,
that you can't really
people talk about
notice.
So people talk about trying to, like, say they paired into somebody who they felt was clearly going to win the tournament. People talk about knowing they're going to take an L, but instead what they'll do, they'll just focus on trying to deny points of one particular nature just to try and drop points from that player. And they call it tanking the score.
I mean, that's very gamey. Yeah.
But we know it's happened because you've heard it in the rumbles of the 40K tournament world. And the reason we're talking about it, because, like I said, if you go to a tournament which is vastly dominated by one gaming team, they absolutely, quite easily, could do that exact action. Now, I know Black Crow, we were at multiple tournaments this weekend, and we also know that if that would have happened, Toby would have finished third. We'd have probably had some other crows higher. And that just shows that that wasn't about our gameplay and people were going for the win. And it wasn't about necessarily, none of that was involved. However, if people are out there are willing to flush toilet down a shitty toilet, they are absolutely willing to try and do something like this.
I think you meant dice, but yeah.
You know, dice down a shitty toilet. Yeah, that's right. It's because I'm just so distracted by Toby and Elder Toby.
I mean, I think it's an interesting point because, like you were saying, in terms of trying to deny people points as well, I mean, that's just part of the game. The only way that, so now I'll come on to this when I talk about had ended up in the 4-1 bracket, then that would have benefited other guys. I was unable to do that. He scored the full 100 points. I'll come on to that later. But, I was trying to do that so that I could win, not so that I could tank someone else's score. So it's always going to be a real fine margin of what someone's thinking in that moment as well. Are they actually going to try and screw someone's score, or are they going just to try and win the game? I know in my case, I was just throwing everything I could at my opponent to try and get my highest score and to try and keep theirs low, because otherwise, against Eldari, you're probably screwed if you can't keep their score reasonably low. And I was screwed in the end.
Well, the thing is with Eldari, what makes them so good at what they do is the fact that they are able to score, and they're killy. I mean, they just have a bit of a tool for everything, and that is why they're so good. At the minute, the reason they have so much hate is because they are obnoxiously good at what they do. And as a modelling point of view, as we saw from Matt's Vision Gaming, his army is stunning. And if you are a hobbyist Eldari is a fantastic army to pick up and to do that. If you're playing against them at this moment in time in the meta, it's pretty negative experience because they are particularly strong. However, it does depend on the pilot, and we do talk about that. So we're going to say goodbye to...
Yeah, I have a counter argument to that.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
I do have a counter argument to that. So there was 3 Eldar players this weekend at the Crossroads event. One of them being Matt, who is a very good player and knows his Eldar very well. Maybe that had a part to play in it, I don't know. But there's a shift in Eldar at the moment, and there's just other things coming through the pipework which is starting to take more precedence in the game than Eldar is, even without any changes currently. So in the
that they probably have. I just need to quickly just double check I think there've been a couple Wi-Fi drops, which probably isn't unusual because the sound keeps dropping. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn... I've got a plan, folks at home. I have a plan. I'm going to drop that.
So just while Arron's doing that, I just think it's interesting you say that, Josh.
I think it's fixed. Have I fixed it, guys?
How do we sound, people?
Yeah, it's all on audio, so not just one person. Have we fixed it?
Give us an answer, you lovely human beings. You can enjoy my Brussels sprouts. Look at those Brussels sprouts.
What is wrong with you?
So many things. Hi, I'm Eldar Toby, and welcome to my mukbang of me eating sprouts.
We don't need that.
I don't think anyone needs that. Toby eats. Oh no.
We don't need that. We're good. I'm hoping.
New Wednesday night segment coming.
You forget I control the Instagram now.
Everybody but mine is working.
I was about to say, Arron, you've gone very quiet for us now as well. Okay. I mean, this does.
He's just phasing himself out.
You guys keep talking, Toby. You guys keep talking, Toby. Bring something into it whilst I try and fix this.
Oh, there you go. That's better.
We heard you good there. That worked. But yeah, so
how am I now?
Yes, sounds great to me. I don't like a lot better than you were 2 seconds ago. Don't know how you sound to the YouTube because I'm not on it. But if the YouTube guys can shout out,
YouTube land. Good. I got good.
Yeah, we're all good. Excellent. Yeah.
Lord. Right.
Yes. So I think it's interesting what Josh has said, and it's definitely accurate. I think the meta is a lot more balanced. We saw in the latest GW article that things are looking a lot more balanced. Eldari are still up there. I do think there is an amount of salt going on over playing against Eldari because they're not. They are somewhat a feels bad army to play against sometimes. Between Yinkan jumping around, night spinners, reducing your movement, reducing your advance, stopping you from doing things, being able to be everywhere all at once. Those can certainly be feels bads, and I think because they've been in that position for so long, people are kind of getting sick of it. It's a bit like how when people started really getting sick with Drakari, and everyone was just like, just get rid of them in ninth when they were so dominant for such a long time. It's just like, well, there's a tournament this weekend. Drakari are going to win it, but there might be something later. It's not as bad as that now, but I think that longevity of success is now grating on people. And I mean, we had, just to give a little spoiler for the EAGT, we had second and third as Eldari for us. I do think, obviously, we just had the World Championships. Chaos and Space Marines were in the final. But maybe it's because the pilots of the Eldari are now, because they've had that time to really practice as well. They're a little bit more tuned with those lists. They're a little bit more competitively experienced, and they are dominating. But from the meta chasing players that I've seen, some of them are switching away from Eldari. They are switching to the triple Redemptor Space Marines, or they are looking at that VSL chaos list that we discussed with Dom previously, or sisters actually.
It is interesting because look, Eldari are still extremely powerful, and they're very, very good, and we will continue to see them do well in the meta, and that is just a given. But it's great that we're seeing like other armies. Don't get me wrong, the armies at the bottom are unfortunately going to stay at the bottom until probably the end of January, when we hopefully see a change in points that will impact the meta in some way. But I think as a whole, we're in a good place. Like a lot of it is down to pilot skill now. Sure. Don't get me wrong, some armies do simply lack necessary tools. So when it comes to, you can have the best pilot in the world, but if they don't quite have the tools, they're going to struggle if they come up to someone who is of a similar level but playing an army that has the tools. And sometimes they might need a little bit of an edge, and if it's not there, it's just not there. But we're going to go into the meta weekend. We're going to talk about the tournaments, and Josh kind of gave you all a bit of a spoiler of what he took a little bit earlier because he didn't listen. That's probably got something to do with the fact that he's old.
Thanks. Well, these old dogs still got tricks.
A whole 12 months older than myself. Anyway,
that was quite an old man sigh as well, Josh, there.
That was an old man sigh. Oh, my back. But anyway, let's have a look at Josh this weekend. There he is.
Oh.
Grabbing a tournament. Third, did you come? You got yourself. Look at that. Yeah. So he was third at Cross Swords. Last time we all went, he came third again or second? Second.
Yeah.
So maybe you just go to that place and just the podium of some description is yours.
I can't win game 4. Every time I go there, I'll go top day 1 and I'll lose game 4.
Hey, it happens.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
Talks about the armies you face, like the winning list, for example. I'm going to get that up on the Meta Monday now because it is in the article. So just give us a bit of a heads up.
Yeah. I've heard us talk on the battle reports recently about the event coming up. There'll also be a vlog later on this week, which I did throughout the event that you guys can go and watch in a couple of days' time. But in the meantime, Cross Swords and Simon run a really great event, which is why I've been to all of their events. It's held in a pub, like I said earlier. It's just glass hammer terrain, everything's standardized, it's set missions, it's just really nice to play. And there's normally guys I know going, so get to catch up with some old friends. So yeah, it's great. Excuse me. And they did one SOS this weekend, which we have spoken about in our group chats, which I don't really think is right for a 40-man event. It doesn't work. I think Super Majors, yes. For top 8, top 16 cuts, yes, it's great. But you guys have talked about SOS or strength of schedule last podcast before, with the difficulties of it. So it did mean that some players probably got a lot higher than they should have, and some didn't get as good as they should have. So, I mean, really, I had the highest VP score of the entire weekend. So I should have naturally been second with a 4-1. And George, a lot of his games sort of timed out early, so then he should have really been sixth. So, but he came second. So it's just one of those. It's just you have no control over it because you can't control who you're going to play and how well they're going to do throughout the entire event. I know that George's opponents, I think 3 or 4 of his went one went 4-1, and the rest went 3-2. And I had a similar one, but the guy I played first game only went 2-3, I think. So that's what then tanked my SOS score. So yeah, there's that. But I had great games. I didn't have any issues all the way through the weekends. Had a really good laugh. Game 1, I played a guy called Ed Mason. I've played him before. He was running Gladius Task Force with all the sort of normal Space Marine goodness. I mean, a couple of whirlwinds. He did take some Blade Guard, Assault Intercessors, Storm Raven gunship full of Eradicators, which was not the funnest thing to have turning up in your back line. But yeah, Ed I've played before. He's a lovely guy. He's a good player. I did get the win on that one. It was more a case of, okay, I'm just going to kill everything, and then when your Storm Ship Raven comes in, it's going to kill the one knight that I've got left in my deployment zone, and then it's just going to stay there for the rest of the game. And by turn 3 or 4, I was in his deployment zone holding his objective, whilst he was holding mine. And then I think the moment of the game, though, was when a Brigand just rolled up to a whirlwind and just went, okay, 2 melter shots, both hit, both wound, go straight through at -5 AP because you're the closest eligible target. And then I roll a double 6 on damage, and I'm within 12 inches, so I did flat 20 damage to it. We both just looked at each other and just like, oh. I was like, I wanted to charge it.
Well, not anymore.
So
go back
not
to
anymore,
the back line joke. Quite a big thing to have in your back line, said Sam.
Yeah. It really was.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is called a throwback.
Throwback.
Yeah, although I think the funniest thing part of that was when the changing just turned up and rolled a 6 and just stopped a unit of Eradicators from shooting. So that was quite fun. And then, so then big win. That was 100-52 win. So big scoreline. No one else got 100 in game 1, so everyone's just looking at me going, oh. And then game 2, I played into Cam Giles again. It's a guy I played before. He's a spiky character, but hey, do you know what? I've got time for Cam. He's a spiky character, and for some reason doesn't seem to enjoy playing 40k. But yeah, and then so go into one Space Marine army, straight into another one, and I walked straight into Iron Storm with double Lancers, triple Redemptors, and Cursors that were invisible, Scouts, all the goodness that you could possibly get in a Marine list currently. So I walked into this game thinking, this is going to be some very dead nights very quickly. As it turned out, that did not happen. I got some ridiculous. We both went tactical. I got some really crazy, super easy to score without really having to overextend myself the first 2 turns on secondaries. It was also the mission where you sort of drop your own. You have to do an action to drop an objective marker. So really easy to do. Keep it all quite tight to my deployment zone with no issues. And I just sat behind buildings, just firing havoc launchers into scoring units and plinking them off and killing them. And it wasn't until sort of turn 3 that I actually really started to come out. He still killed one or two in the first couple of turns. I hadn't killed any of his tanks or vehicles. I just physically couldn't see them because he was pretty much just hiding as well. But he also outranged me. So with only 24-inch range, and his is a lot further. So my issue was if I did come out in the open, I'd be fully exposed to get one round of shooting off, and then I've just got his entire army stood in front of me. So I think even at the end of the game, I still had 4 or 5 knights just sat behind a building. So I played a very cagey game. At one point, I phased a carnivore through a wall. Then he placed 2 objectives so close together that I could basically sit on both of them. So I just stole the objectives off of him, denied him primary in turn 3, and then was surrounded by his army, and he just tanked all of his shooting at me, and I rolled ridiculous amount of 5-ups.
So you rolled
and
half.
Survived. Yeah, so that put me into the next turn. And yeah, by turn 5, I think I scored 90 something to 70. It was really low. I was going into the last turn about 35, 40 points ahead. And it was a case of you haven't got Bring It Down on the deck yet. So I'm just going to, my last turn, I scored my primary, pulled my secondary cards out and just went, I'm not even going to attempt to score those because you have more chance of scoring more points than I have if I expose myself. So I just stayed hidden so he couldn't score his primary in the last turn. Secondary in the last turn. And just let him get the 15, 20 points because it made no difference because I was so far ahead already. Which infuriated him, bless him. But that's the game. Game 3, I went into NIDS. Now, I can't remember. I'm not very good at NIDS. I don't know what they do. But he had loads of jumpy things that were infiltrating at me. We were playing Hammer and Anvil. He was the one basically where they just fully battle shock at all times. Like he's just constantly throwing battle shock at me. And I was like, well, that's my job. I'm supposed to be doing that. Like, fuck off. So in that game, it was kind of simple. I think Paddy, bless him, lovely guy. We will get him on the stream at some point. He's down from Bugle back reps. But he just was way too aggressive into me. He came at to me way too quick. He put all of his infiltrating units like on the halfway line. And by the time I just put my Nurglings between me and him, and then he's then charging, he went first and was just charging Nurglings. I'm like, well, now you're just stuck out in the open in front of stuff that's going to be wounding you on 2s and 3s. So that was just another game of here, bring something out, I'll step forward, I'll obliterate it. And yeah, so that was another high scoring game. So yeah, put me end of, and I think I scored about 84 points. So I had 100, a 94, and an 84, I think, the first day. So really good scoring. Went back, had a few drinks, had some dinner. And then Sunday morning, I got paired into a guy called Aidan from Mind Goblins of Sisters, which was just it was the one list I looked at before the event and just went, I don't want to play that. Aidan did win. Yeah. I think so. I don't know. He is one of Dom's. Yeah, he's a Mind Goblin. Yeah, he's a nice guy. I don't know really. He isn't particularly the talkative person. Yeah. He's a nice guy. He just he doesn't have a lot of time for anything but the playing of the game that we're playing. So that's fine. I haven't got an issue with that. But this is the kind of guy he is. But very fair, great game. And I knew in that game he was going to pretty much get 95 plus before they've even rolled dice. That was guaranteed. It's just how I could negate that on my scoring. And then, so he went fixed. He took homers and bring it down, which I pretty much assumed he would. But they're just so obnoxious to play against. I mean, the Miracle Dice, his list just spits them out for a pastime. And it just makes my shooting almost feel pointless because the amount of I'm just going to, especially on the melter shots, he just goes, oh, well, I'll just save that on a 6. Or, he'll shoot me with a bloody battle sister with a melter. I'll fail 2 saves, so we just go, well, there's 2 6s for damage, so you're just dead. It's really obnoxious. So that was a game where I was like, I just need to make sure I max what I can and deny what I can of him. Now, for some God no reason, I end up pulling, I think it was behind enemy lines, turn 1. So I was like, right, great. So I ditched that for a CP and then drew Storm Enemy Outpost. I was like, okay, this is great for turn 1. And that's actually what lost me the game. Because he scored 99 and I scored 94. So if I got the secondaries I should have got, I would have scored 100. He would have scored 99.
Wow.
So it's like a really close game.
What a game.
Yeah, really good game. It's the closest anyone ran him all weekend, to be honest. I think everyone else got kind of slapped about by him. But my list just scores so well without having to interact too much. So it worked really well for that.
It's all the war dogs, isn't it? The war dogs are just so fast and they're so maneuverable.
And it's just the demon attachment. It just scores me so many points. But yeah, so that was a loss, which was fine. Is what it is. And then went and had Sunday lunch because we're in a pub and they do Sunday lunch and it's great.
Oh well, you can't.
Kind of roast. And then game 5, I played a guy called James McLean, who is a Crossroads member. I've played James before. I normally seem to play him in game 4, game 5.
Right.
And he just sort of went, oh, have I got to play you? Because it didn't go so well from last time. But then he brought Endless Swarm Tyranids, which, my good God, they were a pain in the ass to play against. He just basically had, I don't know, 20, 40, 60, 80, over 100 small nids. I don't know what they're called, but just running around in units of 20. And the trouble is, all of those units, anytime you shoot them in Endless Swarm, or even move within 9 of them, they can move D6. So then they can move into engagement range in the shooting phase as well, which is really quite annoying. And they're all OC2, so he has OC40 in these units. So I'm just like, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but thank God for chain cannons because they
yeah, they must have chewed them to shreds because they're hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s?
Yeah, and when they're the closest unit, they don't even get a save. So
exactly.
Wow.
So it's really good.
So when we had Dave Liddell on last week, he's a big Tyranid fan, and he was very much saying that that sort of list is the list to take right now for Tyranids. That sort of Endless Swarm.
I mean, let's say
very
James
strong.
Is a good player. James is a good player, and he was the same score as me at that point going into game 5. He was 3-1, so he was doing all the right things. But yeah, it was one of those games where he went fixed. He went for cleanse and deploy homers, which I was quite surprised by, if I'm honest. Because obviously he had the spore mines, and his plan was to obviously just shoot spore mines into my deployment zone. But you'll be surprised what 100 base spread out across your deployment zone can do for denying you that at all, even with a spore mine. So he got 1 spore mine in, I think, turn 2, and that was it. And then that ain't happening again. So he never got another deploy in my deployment zone. And then I managed to suffocate him on cleanse as well.
Right.
I remember at one point, I think by turn 3 or 4, I had 3 or 4 war dogs just sat on the center objective with no way of him getting on it. He just couldn't physically kill me. I only lost 2 war dogs the whole game.
Yeah,
So
Tyranids don't do that much damage, do they? They're not great into vehicles.
So I end up just like swallowing the ejectives and just saying, well, no, you just can't physically get onto them now to stop me. I then, during turn 3, when I had to bring in my deep strikes, I was putting them in because I hadn't got things like investigate yet or behind enemy lines. So I was like putting them wherever I could fit them, and then and then I was just anticipating turn 4, turn 5, and then by then it was a 94-74 win.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So thank you for giving us such a clear overview of Crossroads. It sounds like it was a great event. I've been to Crossroads. I had a really good time when I went down there. It's always great coming down and obviously being with yourself, Josh, and the kind of that environment. And
this one, he's just turned up.
Hey. So for those who don't know, this is Simon, one of the other guys from Black Crow. Are you going to be joining us for the rest of the stream, Simon?
No, I've just finished doing the doubles game.
Oh, so he's just been recording. Yeah. We've just been recording. So, guys, if you're watching this or you catch this, we do battle reps. Josh has been kind of building them, putting in the time, the hours, doing some editing, and he is actively developing them every week. He's trying new things. He's learning as he goes along, and I really enjoy them. And I please everybody else get out there, give them a watch, and have a look and see what you think. Somebody is totally eating like chocolate or doing something crispy in the background. Is it you, Toby?
No.
You look innocent.
I'm not doing anything. I'm sorry.
Look, here it is. I feel like it's Toby. Right, Toby.
So we've got doubles for December, and then we've got a special for Christmas. So we've got a Christmas special coming as well.
Very exciting stuff. And obviously we, come watch our stuff. We are developing channel. We are tackling our problems as we get them. One of the things about going live on the internet is you have audio problems and you have connection problems. Something that I'm pretty well versed with trying to deal with at the minute. So we're going to go on to the EAGT. Now, the reason we're going to talk about this, and this is Toby's bit. This is your time to
say goodbye before you carry on.
Oh, bye.
Bye, Simon.
So, at the EAGT, we had 13 Black Crow players from the East Anglian area. That included people from Ipswich, it included people from Norwich, it included people from Yarmouth. And essentially, this has become a group of guys who have actually played each other quite a few times, but they've always been kind of segregated in little small teams. And eventually, we've all been like, you know what? Come join us in Black Crow. Come join the family. Be part of the growing team that is the Black Crow community, which is now over 40 players strong. And EAGT ended up becoming having 13 of our own players there. And Toby, I'm going to let you go in and have a chat about the East Anglian Grand Tournament and talk about like the list that won and how we did.
Yeah, of course. I mean, so you can see a wee bit of a spoiler on there if you've listened to me wax lyrical about Dark Angels and Firestorm in general. But I think what's very interesting about that is that Sisters, a faction that has been sort of said to be one of the weakest in 40k up until very recently, actually came first in both tournaments. Now. Just to quickly talk about the winner, it was one of the War Masters, Jack Tite. I've not spoken to the guy myself, but I know that from other people's experiences, a very, very talented player, very high win percentage, but also just a lovely bloke. So it's always good when a good guy wins. So I'll go into my sort of tournament experience. So round one, I honestly didn't feel like turning up. And I remember saying, guys, I don't know if I think I might just have a lie-in and I'll turn up for round two, because I was going into triple Night Spinner Eldari. And my opponent's list name, it didn't pull any punches on him understanding that he was playing quite a nasty list. I won't repeat one of the words that he used to describe himself, but I'm sure you can guess one of the words.
Hold on, Toby. Let me take the honour of repeating said title of said list. Because I know the guy, and I think he won't mind too much. We're not going to name names, but it's quite funny. I was playing AdMech until last minute change. Please don't hate me, even though I have zero shame playing this list. Blame Connor Nichols for taking the list. I cannot be outdone with the indirects. And I did actually message him being like, mate, this is a right CUNT of a list. And he was like, I know. And to be fair, you go into a tournament and it's fine. It is what it is. And I think, Toby, you learned a pretty valuable lesson, actually, in the fact that you did say, you know what, I don't want to play this. But what did you rocked up, and how did you do?
Yeah, so basically I knew I had to go first if I had any chance of winning. And unfortunately, I didn't go first. So I had to deal with two turns of night spinners shooting me before I would be able to drop in and handle them with my Inceptors. And that's kind of what did it. But I was, I think, under 40 points by the end of turn 3. But I actually managed to claw it back to 175. So I wasn't able to prevent any of his scoring. But knowing that it was points, I was able to go, okay, reassess, refocus. How can I take points for myself and just look for those different areas that I can actually win? And towards the end, I actually managed to score 15 on primary a couple of times. So, I was able to learn that I'm able to kind of win late game against Eldari. So for the next time, if I do play them, say this weekend at Leicester, I know that I just have to deny them enough scoring right at the start, force them to fight the battle in their back line, and then kill those key units out in the open. I think if I'm able to do that, maybe it becomes a bit more relevant. Again, if I go first, I actually feel all right in that matchup. I think Space Marines in general feel all right in that matchup purely because of Inceptors. Sometimes Whirlwinds as well, obviously, give them a huge benefit. But really, you do need to go first. But yeah, very talented player. It was a good game. It was quite a savage game, I think, in terms of us really going hammer and tongs at each other. But yeah, so unfortunately, I went 0-1 into the weekend, but I was expecting it, so just sort of went right, reassess, go next. I then immediately paired into a crow, which was a bit of a shame. So I went into one of our younger crows, Alex, and he was playing Raven Guard in their own detachment. It was an interesting list. It was that kind of focus around Terminators, infiltrating them, and then trying to get to grips with me that way. It had Cave and Shrike in, who I think is actually quite a good character, but he was leading Vanguard Vets, which I'm less hot on as a unit. I don't think they're quite worth their points. For 10 of them, it's 210 points. I think for 210 points, you can probably get a wee bit better. But, they were able to jump in. But I think the mistake that Alex made, he tunnel visioned on my Azrael, which I put in the open to try and bait him into going for. So I traded Azrael for 10 Vanguard Vets and Cave and Shrike because there was a Redemptor and a Redeemer just sitting right next to it, ready to sort of knock their socks off, which they then probably did. So from there, I'm also pretty good at killing 3-wound infantry. So the Terminator bomb, since it's not the
Oh, I think he's had a something's come up.
Yeah, sorry about that. So when in that game, I'm pretty good at killing the 3-wound infantry, Terminators, that kind of thing. So once they were gone, it was sort of the teeth were out. So it was a bit easier for me to then just go in and score my points. And because it was also vital ground, it was quite easy for me to get those points in the later game. Once I think I tabled him by turn 4. So yeah, it was Marines, when they start dying, they really do start dying. So that was round 2. Then round 3, I went into a gentleman called Gareth with his Death Guard. And that was a very vehicle-heavy Death Guard list. In fact, it had 3 of the very shooty Bulldogs.
Or the Plague Burst Crawlers?
No. So it had 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, a Predator Annihilator, 3 Wardogs with the melters and the chain guns, the ones hitting on 2.
Brigands.
Yeah, Brigands, and a couple of Rhinos for then a core of Plague Marines. with the accompanying characters, and then Typhus and some Terminators, just because Typhus is usually too good to miss out on.
What an interesting list.
It was, and the gentleman finished 3-2, and I think the only reason he finished 3-2 is because he had some really tough games. The only games he lost were to 4-1 finishes. Myself and Corbin actually both playing reasonably similar lists in quite different ways. Shooty Space Marines, basically, which I think Death Guard does struggle against. And it was a very, very cagey kind of game from his perspective. I did very well on my board control, but he was killing me very quickly. And I think if the game had been, say, 6 or 7 turns, I think he might have turned the corner and got me. But because it was that turn 5 finish, and my Eradicators and Redeemer combo was able to wipe out all the Plague Marines very efficiently with the Redeemer, and then the Eradicators jumping out were able to just very efficiently kill a lot of his tanks, especially when they can jump out, shoot, give it another turn, which they jumped out, killed Typhus, just wiped him out. Tanked the Predator shooting at them. Predators in Death Guard surprisingly good at killing infantry because they can make it -3 on all of its weapons into infantry, which is very efficient at killing Gravis armored Space Marines and things like that. Yeah. Because the only weakness for autocannons is that they're AP -1, but the Predator gets the innate -1 by shooting infantry, and then there's the stratagem to make it -3. So that was a cool bit of tech. I really liked that from him. But I was just able to eke out a win there. So it was close, but I was able to I think mentally it was quite a difficult game for him because it always felt like I was ahead. And because of that, I think it just sort of pushed him a little bit in terms of trying to make those decisions. I don't think he did anything particularly wrong. I think some dice rolls just ended up not really going his way, and my army did have, I'd say probably like a 75, no, it's not a 75, a 65, 35% chance to win in that particular matchup. But very interesting list. And the Brigands, I thought, were a really nice way of tackling the Death Guard's inefficiencies into heavy armor without playing Mortarion. So really cool bit of tech. Really interested in seeing how Gareth does in the future as well, and if that might inspire any other Death Guard players. So that was day 1 for me. 2-1 finish, which is usually my sort of standard for day 1. Usually I lose the 3rd round, but this time I lost the 1st. So we went out and we had some dinner, just as Josh and his guys did. Had a really lovely time just hanging out with some of the crows that I've not met before, and some of the Sons of War as well. And then we went into day 2, and unfortunately, again, I pulled another crow. So I go into Sam and his World Eaters, and do you remember Sam?
Big Sam.
Big Sam. So yeah, Sam's thick Angron. This game was an interesting one because I think World Eaters are a bad matchup for me. So Jay, who's one of our other crows, was teasing me about the fact that when he looked over at my deployment zone, I was all along the back line, literally just strung out as far as I could away from him in my deployment zone. There was, I think, 2 units not touching my back line by the end of my scout move. Sam still got turn 1 charges. So he yeah. We were playing supply drop, and I went 2nd. So that is usually a good sign if you're doing supply drop. When we spoke about the Peterborough Slam, I said if you go 2nd in supply drop, I think you usually win, unless you table your opponent. And so obviously Sam went, right, I've got to table him. So he goes hell for leather with 2 of his 8-bound units. I overwatch, and I spike my overwatch, but it is my Land Raider overwatching. It's very good into infantry, and he loses 3 exalted 8-bound before he even gets them in. And then, so the other 3 then crack into the Land Raider, take half its wounds off, but then a unit of 3 8-bound go into a unit of Outriders. Outriders are 95 points. Only 1 died.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I rolled 5s and 6s like an absolute animal. I was just like, you know what, I'm sorry, because like my luck's just been stupid there. I think I rolled 6 of 7 5-up saves. So it was just a real spike. And at that point, Azrael was able to just then take his squad of Stern Guard, move that way a little bit, pop those 3 because he's really efficient into infantry with his mortal wounds. So he killed off those 8-bound. My Land Raider killed the other 3 Exalted 8-bound while it was in combat with them. With the flamers in my shooting phase, I was able to get onto the objectives and start. And it looked very, very good for me. The only slight whiff I had was my Redemptor absolutely screwed the pooch in trying to kill Lord Invocatus, who was on the centre objective, which I was a little bit frustrated about because I had overwhelming force, and that gave Sam some No Man's Land victory points, which I knew I wasn't going to get for the first couple of turns because he was going to pin me back. There was no way that I could deny him, but I couldn't take those objectives and hold them.
Yeah, Waddies are very good at board control early game.
Yeah, exactly. But I knew that if I just hold out, wait, I've got the speed and I've got the redeploy of my scouts, that in that late game when those 8-point primaries are up for grabs and the 15-point final, I knew I could get it. So Angron comes flying in, and I've already been told by Sam that Angron is going to be going for my Dreadnoughts. I'm like, cool, okay, I kind of want that at this point. I know the Dreadnought's good, but if I can trade that for Angron, happy days. So Angron goes in, turns my Dreadnought into sort of paste, very, very sad paste, like that. And then I was able to jump my Land Raid around, get it in position where the Apothecary Biologist was on the central objective, kill Invocatus with the Land Raider, and then all of my Eradicators went into Angron. And I rolled double 6s on my Melter damage on the first 2 that he failed. And they were in Melter range. So he instantly took 16 wounds off 2 Melter shots, which was pretty good, shockingly. Who'd have thought? So Angron, Angron went down like a sack of bloody offal to my Melters. I'll talk a little bit more about those later because they were a really fun unit. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I've locked this up. We're sorted. Most of the 8-bound are dead to Inceptors. There's very little resources left. As long as Angron doesn't come back, Sam's teeth are out, apart from 1 block of Khorne Berserkers and the Master of Executions. Then Sam has possibly the most perfect turn ever, short of reviving Angron. Makes all of these long bomb charges, rolls incredibly hot. I roll really poorly on my saves, lose my Eradicators, my Apothecary, all of my presence on the objective. I do ever slightly manage to get my saves up on some of my Inceptors, so they were okay. And he rolled low actually on his last remaining Exalted 8-bound. But at that point, I was like, okay, this might have gone. If Angron resurrects now, because he had the strategy to redo his rolls and maybe get Angron back, I was like, if he gets this, it's gone. Luckily, he didn't. He rolled double 6 instead of triple 6. So I was like, oh, thank goodness me, because otherwise the game that was very much mine to lose, I would have just lost it. But obviously, one very good return deserves a very good turn in return. So my Land Raider stepped up to the plate and just killed 10 Berserkers and the Master of Execution straight off the bat, just annihilated them. I'd also picked up my scouts from my deployment zone, and because it's a supply drop, your home objective does not count. Sam had nothing on his home objective, and I pull Capture Enemy Outpost off the top of my library, and I go, brilliant, okay, that's 8 points that I can just go by putting my scouts right there, sorted. So there was a bit of luck, I think, with those cards as well. And then at that point, the units that were scoring for Sam were Jackals. They die quite quickly when you start pouring shots into them. So I was able to get the last few units gone, and it ended up with Sam had just a Rhino left by the end of the game. And I scored a lot on the primary. And I don't think the score, because it was about mid-80s to 41, I think it was 84 to 41. That score was not reflective of the game. And I think that is a problem with supply drop, because I think on many other different games that would have been a lot closer, and it deserved to be a lot closer. I think that was the game which I always felt the most under pressure, apart from the Eldari one. It was the one that I felt like I couldn't make any errors in. But yeah, great game. Shame it was against a teammate, but obviously also good for the team that we have that caliber of player. Then going into my final round, I get another crow because of course I do, and I have to team kill to try and get 4-1. So I'm going into Steve, who is playing Vanguard Tyranids, very similar to what Josh has already talked about. So I'm not going to talk too much about them. It's the Battle Shocking Tyranids, everything like that. Exocrine's very scary. Turn 1, I'm able to snipe out his spore deploying Biovore with my Dreadnought, and then the Exocrines fire back at me, do 0 damage because cover and Armor of Contempt means that I'm saving on 3s and he is winning me on 5s. So they did absolutely nothing. From there, I was able to just rip one flank to pieces, and it was looking very good for me. My Eradicators, I didn't quite take into account how strong Exocrines are into infantry, though. And I overwatched, and this was my biggest mistake of the weekend, I think. I overwatched with my tank rather than my Eradicators into the Exocrine, when I really should have done it with the Eradicators, because they're re-rolling everything and 6s are auto-wounding because of the Apothecary Biologists, and I can automatically turn a hit into a 6 once per turn with one of the Salamander upgrades. So that was a huge punt, and Steve pointed it out, and I felt like I had this huge egg on my face and that I might have just lost the game. However, I was able to pull it out of the bag at that point, get into positions to kill enough, and roll very well on some 5-up saves on Outriders again. Outriders are so good. They're so bad at killing things, but they're so good at scoring points and just being annoying. And from there, I was able to eke out a win. I won by 13 points. I think it was something like 85 to 72, but it was a very good game. And Steve really made me sort of fight for every, like I said, by end of turn 2, he was like, I think you've got this. And I think because he kept on saying that, it did make me underestimate a little bit how much he could punch me back. And I think that was an error. I think I wouldn't have made that mistake if it was earlier in the tournament, but I did because it was later in the tournament as well. But yeah, very, very good game. But I did manage to get the win, which finished me 4-1. And you can see on there, down in 6th place.
So I think, well done. We're gonna. I think you should be really proud of that, Toby, because you've come a long way. You've very recently been coming into the tournament scene. Obviously, I kind of brought you in as my wee Padawan, and arguably Josh is the reason that I'm in the tournament scene so much as well, because of like how we met. And this is something that Black Crow Gaming does very well. We bring people out there who need a community, who think that they're not the best player, and then by being in that community they improve, and then they improve their results, and then they start going to tournaments with more confidence. And you know what, they come up with lists that aren't copy and paste from the internet, and they play a great game. We had so many crows at EAGT, it was inevitable that we would have also had another one on the podium. And I want to say a massive congrats to Jay. He was playing an Eldari. I mean, he wasn't necessarily as oppressive as some of the other Eldaris there, but he pipped second. He did very well. Very well. Got himself the second place, and he absolutely smashed it. I want to also do a massive shout out to Adam. He got the wooden spoon for the weekend, but he got the best prize, and the prize that all Black Crow Gaming that we say is the only prize that really matters. He got most sporting at the event.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
most funny then.
Well, yeah, it is funny. He happens to have the spoons there, which look great, and then he also got most sporting. So he came away. Let's go, yeah, Adam, you are a hero. He also had the best list. He did. So Adam took a Monster Mash list, and I'm going to let him write it up in the chat, so then people, when they watch this back, they can see.
It might take a while to write up that list. There's a lot of units.
Very reminiscent of 9th edition, that list.
Yeah.
But it was, you know what? It was just great to see the. I think what these guys realised who have recently joined the team, going to tournaments when you're a part of a big team, there's nothing better because automatically it changes how the tournament feels to you. All of a sudden you've got players you can lean on if it's not going that great and you can talk to, who will be there and got your back and like there to make you feel better. But also like in the build-up and the hype. And
it's the camaraderie of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
The week before and everything, or talking over list ideas, and it's just the whole build up, and even afterwards. Like today, for example, the group chats have been going mad.
Yeah. People have just been talking about it. We also need to give some shout outs to some of our other players as well. Like we had a few 4-1s. Corbin, he also came in at the same time as Toby. Him and Toby have both been kind of bouncing off each other with like similar results. And again, Corbin's come in. He smashed it. He got a Form 1. Very unlucky not to nick a podium as well. And he's got like the triple dread list. He's doing very, very well. And I've just got to say, like, I'm super proud of like what Black Crow is coming from. Like, we've grown as a team. We've taken on more members. We've got cool things planned for the future. And I think for Josh, when when I joined, there was like it was a few like 12, maybe 15 max at the time, but not all of them were like regularly attending events, or some of them maybe a little bit vacant. Whereas now the team is a hive of activity.
100%, and like you said, I think it's just the whole community base of it. It's it's grown into something really quite nice. And I'm glad to be a part of it. So I'm sure you boys are as well. And like you said, a testament with Corbin and Toby and things, like these guys have not been playing very long, but all of a sudden you're doing better and better at events, and your skill level is getting up really quite quickly. So you're welcome.
And this leads.
This is how far Josh's tongue can stretch.
That's what Sam was talking about.
So
this is the side of Josh's head.
Yeah.
So the next big tournament we need to talk about, and this is a bit of a build-up. So Josh has vlogged his weekend, and that is going to be a series coming up on the Black Crow YouTube. So, and I think it's really important that you watch that, because that necessary build-up into a tournament and like thinking through a list, you get a lot of anxiety when you come to a tournament. You get a lot of kind of like, how am I going to do? Is my list going to work? Is my play style right? Am I a decent player? Do I still have it? These are all questions that come through your mind. Like, I still, now, when I am prepping for a tournament, I still see myself as like, I'm happy if I get a victory. And yet, my average is definitely more wins than losses when I go to tournaments. And maybe I need to tell myself that we've got this. But the next one we're going to is Leicester. Now, Leicester, we've all had a look at the lists, and the Leicester UKTC, I think it is the best way to describe a UKTC tournament is you should have no shame with whatever list you take to that tournament. If you want to take the most broken fucking shit you can find, do it, because I feel like that's kind of the acceptable norm there. When you rock up to your local GT and there's like 30 players and 15 of them have brought fluffy lists and never played a tournament before, rocking up with like some horrendous list is probably not going to win you many friends. Go to a UKTC event and it's to be expected. And I've gone with the mindset. So when I looked at these lists, I was like, I know what I'm going to face. I faced a Meta Eldari. I faced Meta Space Marines. I faced, Necrons. I faced GSE. All of these lists, I've played them, and I'm looking at them on paper, and it doesn't make them less intimidating. But that is because I am a custodian player, and every army I play at the minute is a challenge. I have to really if you're playing custodians at the minute, people always used to say that if you play Custodes, is that it is the entry level army and that it is easy to win with Custodes. That may have been true at one stage, but like at any army, if you want to look at an entry level army at the minute, absolutely don't buy Custodes. It might be cheap to buy, get it, but you're not going to get anything that's worth taking for cheap. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I don't think there's any real cheat code army anymore.
No,
I mean,
absolutely
apart
not.
from Eldar. But even then, you still need to have a certain level of player skill.
Yep.
Back in 8th edition and stuff, it was like, oh, we'll start with Imperial Knights because it's really easy to learn. I never really agreed with that. Like, yeah, it's easy to learn 3 or 4 data sheets and move things around the table, but that's not the case. Like, I find Knights are actually probably one of the more difficult armies to play, like Custodes, because every unit matters. So your movement, your deployment, how you use those units is so much more important than if I had 100 Marines. A bit more finesse. Yes, it's very easy to pick some of these armies up and play them. Great. Can you actually make them competitive enough to play? And I think that's where the difference comes in sometimes.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that as well. I mean, I've always thought Custodes have actually, like, sure, yeah, when you're playing with your tiny friendship group, and I've said this to you before, Arron, sure, a 2-up save and a 4-up save, yes, when you're all entry-level players, sure. As soon as you're going into people and they're forcing you for 4-ups and you're dying every single time that you fail one of those 4-ups, it's a completely different game. And I just can't agree with people saying that Custodes are easy for that, because you have so few resources that you really get punished. If one thing is left out in the open for too long, done, you're over. So it's difficult. I think if I was talking to a newer player right now, I would potentially say, and this is without looking at the new Necrons Codex, I would say right now Necrons might be one of the simpler ones to do, just because you can go, okay, let's take big blobs of Lichguard, let's take the interesting characters, and let's take a Catan as my hammer blow. And it's a reasonably simple list to start learning. You also learn a lot of the interactions. No, Josh is shaking his head, disagreeing. No,
Don't take Lichguard anymore.
Sorry?
Don't take Lichguard anymore. No. Leave enough to fuck out of them. Leave them alone.
Okay.
Wraiths.
Yes, Wraiths. Yeah, Wraiths.
Take a lot of Wraiths.
There's a player that we see quite a lot of tournaments and hear quite a lot of tournaments, Peter, who, if you've ever met Peter is the loudest man ever.
You definitely hear him before you ever see him.
It's like rock concert, stand next to an aeroplane, Peter laughing. And Peter is also a phenomenal individual. You will not meet a nicer bloke. He is one of the people that you always want to go out and have dinner with after the tournament. But he was playing a lot of Wraiths this weekend. He's a Necron specialist, lots of Wraiths, everything like that. He did go 2-3, so it is worth bearing in mind that actually Necrons might be in a bit of a rough place, and I think they are.
They are currently. They're not in a good place, but the book's out next week, so
hopefully that'll change.
We're not even going to try and talk about them too much, because they're going to change so much. It's going to be such a good topic for us to bring up, but they need the book. They need the book. So what we're gonna go on to, because I'm aware that it's getting a little bit later. We've talked about the meta. We've seen so far. I'm just gonna rush through these. So we had a 48 player Majestic Beasties in Canada, Space Marines with a 5-0, and then a World Eaters 5-0. We then had the 2D6 Grand Tournament with a Grey Knights 5-0 in Oslo, Norway. What the hell was going on out there? I don't know. In the FA Cup, which is weird, in Hong Kong, really random play is Votan with a 5-0. Then obviously
that's not much of a surprise, I guess.
That's not surprising. Then we've got Sisters, and then we've got Sisters for EAGT and Cross-Swords respectively. Then we've got GSC, which
that's a surprise.
Which is a surprise, but again,
that is a surprise.
I think because there's been no real major tournaments this weekend.
Oh, it's in California. Okay, forget that.
Yeah, so yeah, and then we got another Votan with 5-0, Space Marines, Sisters again. Eldari won the Hertfordshire Winter GT, but
the thing is, though,
22 players.
The thing is, I find with the Votan though, and they're in different countries, you don't know what the terrain's like.
This is very true.
The terrain's really open, and Votan are just going to obliterate you.
So we're not going to have a look at
first.
We're not going to have a look at the weekend data. What we're going to do, we're going to have a look at the data from since the date slate, so 11 weeks worth, because I feel like that is the most accurate. So still at very, very close to the top, we have got Eldari with a 57% win rate for GTs. And bear in mind, we are different. We only consider GTs. We do not consider RTTs, because I don't think RTTs necessarily give you a true reflection of the meta, because you can.
I don't think there's too many local metas for that.
Which is why I don't necessarily agree with the way that Games Workshop does their meta-analysis. I think that they base it solely on RTTs and GTs, and they take it all together and they batch it all together, and I think it just tries to make them look better than they actually are doing. But that's just my personal view. So Leagues of Votann, they're at a healthy 55%. Chaos Space Marines, 54%. Orcs, 53%. Chaos Knights, 52%. They've crept up a bit. Sisters of Battle are still only a 48%.
They are a difficult one. They're very recent as well. I think they are one of the best in the game, full stop, now that the list has been solved.
Yeah.
But up until now, they were really struggling. But now that list, I think you're going to see a heck of a lot of, and I can see it getting nerfed quite quickly.
So Gene Stealers have gone up to 50%, which is quite healthy considering they were towards the bottom a few weeks ago. Thousand Suns are 49%, which surprised me because they're particularly strong still. Death Guard are at 50%.
Yeah, they've dropped a lot.
Yeah, they also take a lot of brain power to do so. I imagine by rounds 4 and 5, if you're a Thousand Suns player and you're not like infinitely in the know with them, that gets tough.
Astra Militarum are sitting at a 46% win rate.
That is surprisingly low to me, because I think that indirect artillery list with the basilisks and everything like that, I love that list. I think it's incredible. The tools that army's got, spot on. But equally, I think people might just be rocking up with Guard because they think it's fun, and they're bringing full infantry lists and they're getting slammed because of it.
So I want to bring something up, and this is, again, I'm a Custodes fanboy, but Custodes have been represented 354 times over the 11-week period. More than almost any other faction. I'm going to have a look quick to see. So there's they're up there with, like, Tyranids have been represented 500 times, but they're up there as one of the most represented factions. They have got a win rate of 45% over GTs. 354 reps, guys, from different players, 45%. That's pretty damning.
I think a lot of that. I think a lot of that might be down to that kind of issue that we were talking about earlier of people going, this is the easy army. So it's almost like how you can never really trust stats on Marines because Marines are everywhere. But Custodes are probably being represented because people are going, well, this is an easy entry level, taking them to their first tournament because I only need to remember the 2 up, 4 up. And then they're getting hammered because of it. I do think Custodes are in a weaker position, but I do think that data does get skewed a wee bit by weaker players taking that list when the specialists are able to still perform at a high level.
Well, it's about what you take, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I mean, look what I'm spamming at the minute.
Forge World.
Stuff that, if you can afford it. My list is literally made up of Venatari, Caladius tanks, and Terminators.
Yeah. That's the way to do it.
Some Wardens, which I kind of use as bait to take armies worth of shooting, so that my other stuff can do things. The meta is in an interesting place. We've got to wait until the end of January until we see a shake-up. I would argue that I don't think the balance data sets come quick enough during Index Hammer. What do you guys think about it?
I don't know if I agree. At the moment, I actually think the game, everything's going in the right direction. I think the game of 10th especially is the most balanced it's been.
But would it be beneficial for us to have, as we're all online, why can't we have a live points system where every month the points...
Wasn't that supposed to be a thing anyway when they originally released 10th, that points and stuff was going to be a live ability? But the thing is, their argument will be, well, we need 3 months to see the data because every time we make a small change, we need to see how big of a puddle that makes.
Yeah, I mean, look how long it's taken for that sisters list to kind of come out. Like until literally say 2 weeks ago, everyone was saying sisters are dog shit. Do not take them. And now all of a sudden, everyone's going, "Oh my god, sisters are probably going to start winning all these tournaments."
Well, I suppose the thing to look at, Toby, is going to be Leicester, the last big tournament of December in the UK. I think there's probably like 150 odd players or whatever are going.
I tell you what, Vic's a sisters player, isn't he?
He's playing Chaos.
And Thousand Suns. But what I mean is if he's taking sisters, that'll probably give you a pretty good indication.
No, he's playing Chaos.
Yeah,
he is playing Chaos.
Yeah,
he is. I would say he is playing Chaos he's playing a similar list to VSL. He's playing Chaos with some Rubric Marines in a detachment.
I know we talked before about this, and I know like the sort of top 5% of players in the country, they sort of live in their own little bubble of stuff. They have their own meta up there, and that's the big thing about super majors is because you get your top players who are normally win the game 1, game 2, and then just go off up into the ether and sit on the top tables and play in their own little ecosystem. So their lists are kind of tailored around fighting each other more so than anything else. And then you kind of get the mid board. Well, they're just above the mid board, which is sort of actually a skew list, like your lists that you don't actually really expect to see, but the people piloting them are very good and they know what they're doing with the army. And then you kind of get this weird bit just underneath that's kind of the net listers who have gone, this is a great list. I'm going to nick that, and then don't know what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
And then you just get whatever's left at the bottom.
Yeah, I do think we're going to see that a lot, and I think that's going to hit Marines particularly hard because I think people are just going to go triple Redemptor, triple Whirlwind, Inceptors, done. Because
I've literally looked at several lists from Leicester, and it was if I could copy and paste, it is a bit like that. But you know what? Like we said, it's perfectly fine to do that at Leicester. That is the meta at the minute. What I think we're going to do, guys, we're gonna wrap it up because we've had a good long chat tonight. I want to thank you, Josh, for coming on again. You know you love coming on here and joining us. It's glad to have Toby back, and we and Toby will be back next week with Dominic Maidlow. We're going to do our review of the Leicester GT. So make sure you catch us a week today at the same time, 9 p.m, where we do our review of the Leicester GT. I also just want to point out that throughout the week we have got battle reports going to be going up. We've got our vlog from Josh from his crossword experience coming up
every Saturday 10 a.m. vlogs, battle reports.
And as I did mention last week, we do have a awesome new channel sponsor, which we will be preparing for you lovely people to show off what we've got and what we've been sent. It looks awesome. I'm really excited about it. They're going to be appearing very shortly on the battle reports. Myself and Toby are going to do some fun stuff with it shortly, and we'll have that for you all very, very soon. But from us at Black Crow Gaming, I just want to say again, thank you very much. If you like what you've heard tonight, or if you've not liked it, but who cares, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Subscriptions really help.
Subscriptions help. They feed my children. No, that's a joke. I have a job that feeds my children. And the joke is that I do feed them. That's not the... Anyway, Black Crow Gaming, thank you very much. We hope to see you next week. Take care. Bye all.
Yes.